Marcus sat motionless, his hands clenched into fists beneath the polished mahogany table. The weight of the board member's decision hung over him like a suffocating fog. One by one, hands continued to rise in favor of his removal. Some hesitated, casting nervous glances his way. But in the end, fear outweighed loyalty. Whitmore watched the betrayal unfold with smug satisfaction. When the last hesitant hand lifted, he leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "Well, Mr. Carter, it seems the board has spoken." Marcus inhaled sharply, steadying himself. He had prepared for resistance, for corruption, for intimidation, but he hadn't expected them to move this fast. They had flipped the script on him, turning his fight for justice into a battle for survival. The lead investigator, a sharp-eyed man in a stiff gray suit, stepped forward. "Mr. Carter, you'll need to come with us for questioning." Angela shot to her feet. "This is insane. You don't have a shred of real evidence against him." The investigator barely acknowledged her. "That's for the courts to decide." Marcus slowly pushed back his chair and stood. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him rattled. He adjusted his tie, leveling Whitmore with an icy stare. "You think this is over?" Whitmore smirked. "Oh, Marcus, this was just a warm-up." The ride to the station was quiet. Marcus's mind raced through possible countermoves, but the reality was sinking in. He had underestimated just how deep the corruption ran. The moment he stepped inside that interrogation room, they would try to break him, and he couldn't let that happen. The investigator led him to a dimly lit room with a metal table and a single chair. Marcus took a seat, keeping his posture strong. Moments later, the investigator reappeared with a folder in hand and a calculating expression. $5 million, Mr. Carter. That's a lot of missing money." Marcus didn't flinch. "And I assume you've traced a single cent of that to my accounts?" The investigator's lips pressed into a thin line. "Not yet." Marcus leaned forward. "Because you won't. Because I didn't take it. But you already knew that." The investigator remained silent for a moment before setting the folder down. "Let me give you some advice. You're new to this world, Carter. You might have money, but you don't have power. These men, they don't lose." Marcus locked eyes with him. "Neither do I." A flicker of something, respect, maybe, crossed the investigator's face before he stood. "For your sake, I hope that's true." He exited the room, leaving Marcus alone. Minutes passed, then the door creaked open again. But this time, it wasn't the investigator. It was Whitmore. Marcus's muscles tensed. "Pretty bold move, visiting the man you just framed." Whitmore chuckled, taking the seat across from him. "I admire your resilience, Marcus. Really, I do, but you made a mistake." Marcus's expression darkened. "Enlighten me." Whitmore's voice lowered. "You thought you could change the system from the inside. That's not how this works. This bank isn't just a business. It's a machine. It's been running a certain way for decades. And men like me, we keep it running." Marcus leaned in, his eyes sharp. "By stealing from the very people who trust you?" Whitmore's smirk didn't fade. "By making sure the right people win." Marcus clenched his jaw. "You're scared." Whitmore raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Marcus's voice was steady, unwavering. "You wouldn't be here if you weren't. You're used to people folding the second you flex your power. But I'm still standing." Whitmore's smirk faltered. Not for long. He stood and straightened his suit. "You'll be indicted soon. Once that happens, your assets will be frozen. You'll be too busy fighting legal battles to worry about this bank." Marcus exhaled slowly. "You really think I don't have a plan?" Whitmore chuckled. "Marcus, you're out of time." With that, he walked out, leaving Marcus with a single, chilling thought. Was he right? Hours later, Marcus was released on bail, thanks to his legal team, but the damage had been done. News outlets were already running the story. Young black CEO under investigation for fraud. The media was eating it up, twisting the narrative in Whitmore's favor. Marcus returned to his penthouse, exhaustion creeping in. Angela was waiting for him, pacing the living room. "You okay?" she asked, concern etched into her face. Marcus sighed, running a hand over his face. Not even close. Angela clenched her fists. We can't let them get away with this. Marcus sank into the couch. They want me out of the picture. If I don't move carefully, they'll bury me. Angela hesitated before pulling a flash drive from her pocket. That's why I did some digging. Marcus sat up. What is that? Angela swallowed hard. Proof. Not just of the stolen money, but who took it. Marcus's heart pounded. Tell me you have Whitmore. Angela's expression darkened. Not just him. The corruption runs higher than we thought. Marcus took the flash drive, his fingers tightening around it. This was his chance, his real weapon. But as he plugged it into his laptop, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. If you release that, you won't live to see the end of this war. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at Angela, then back at the screen. He had the evidence to take them down. But if he used it, would he survive long enough to win? Marcus's hands hovered over the laptop keyboard, his pulse thudding like a war drum. The flash drive was plugged in, its contents waiting to be exposed. He could already imagine the fallout, the headlines, the arrests, the justice that had been denied for too long. But that text message, if you release that, you won't live to see the end of this war. Angela was pacing the living room, eyes flicking from Marcus to the laptop screen. We have everything we need, she said, voice low but urgent. This proves Whitmore and his people stole millions. The public needs to see this. Marcus exhaled, running a hand over his face. And if they kill me before that happens? Angela hesitated. Then we plan this right. We don't just dump it online. We make sure it's seen by the right people, the ones who can actually do something about it. Marcus leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. Who do we trust? Angela chewed her lip before answering. I have a contact at the Sentinel. She's been digging into banking corruption for years. If we give it to her, she'll blow this up in a way Whitmore can't cover up. Marcus considered it. A major investigative journalist would put pressure on authorities to act. But Whitmore wasn't just any criminal. He had judges, law enforcement, and politicians in his pocket. One wrong move, and this entire plan could backfire. His phone buzzed again. One chance, Marcus. Walk away, before it's too late. Angela saw the message over his shoulder and stiffened. They're scared. That's why they're trying to intimidate you. Marcus nodded, but deep down, he knew intimidation was only the beginning. If he moved forward, this wasn't just about exposing fraud anymore. It was war, and war had casualties. The next morning, Marcus and Angela met with Lisa Caldwell, the journalist from the Sentinel. They chose a public cafe, somewhere busy, somewhere Whitmore's people wouldn't risk making a scene. Lisa was sharp, her eyes constantly scanning the crowd as she listened to Marcus's story. You understand what this means, right? She said after reviewing the files. Once this goes public, Whitmore and his allies will come at you with everything they have. I know, Marcus said, but they already came for me. It's my turn. Lisa nodded, sliding the flash drive into her bag. I'll need a couple of days to verify everything. Once I do, I'll publish a full expose. This will be everywhere. Marcus felt the weight on his shoulders shift. This was happening. But as they left the cafe, something didn't feel right. A black SUV idled across the street, its tinted windows reflecting the morning sun. Marcus's gut twisted. Then, just as he reached for Angela's hand, the SUV's tires screeched and a masked man jumped out, gun in hand. Get down! Marcus shouted, shoving Angela aside as the first shot rang out. Chaos erupted. Pedestrians screamed, diving for cover. Marcus pulled Angela behind a parked car as bullets shattered windows around them. The masked gunman wasn't just firing wildly. He was aiming for them. Marcus's mind raced. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was an execution. Angela was shaking but steady. We need to move. Marcus peered around the car, eyes locking on a side alley. On my count. Another shot whizzed past, barely missing his shoulder. Now! They sprinted, ducking behind dumpsters and weaving through the narrow alleyway. The gunfire stopped, but Marcus knew better than to think they were safe. They had just survived an assassination attempt, and that meant the war had officially begun. That night, Marcus paced the penthouse, rage boiling under his skin. Angela was on the phone with Lisa, making sure she was safe. The journalist was shaken but undeterred. She promised the story would still go live. But Marcus knew Whitmore wasn't done. His phone buzzed again. You should have walked away. Marcus clenched his fists. He was done playing defense. They want a war, he muttered. Let's give them one. Angela frowned. What are you thinking? Marcus grabbed his car keys. We've been reacting this whole time. It's time to go on the offensive. Angela hesitated. Marcus, they just tried to kill us. Marcus met her gaze. And they failed. Now it's my turn. Marcus drove through the city, his mind sharp despite the tension in his chest. He wasn't just going after Whitmore anymore. He was going after everyone involved. The judges, the politicians, the enablers who allowed this corruption to thrive. He made his way to an old contact, Dante, a private investigator who specialized in uncovering dirt on powerful men. Dante was waiting at a dimly lit bar, sipping whiskey like he had all the time in the world. You look like a man on a mission, Dante said as Marcus slid into the seat across from him. I need everything you have on Whitmore. His contacts, his weak spots, people he wouldn't want exposed. Dante raised an eyebrow. That's dangerous territory. Marcus didn't blink. So is getting shot at in broad daylight. Dante exhaled, setting down his drink. I have some things. But if you really want to take him down, you need more than financial fraud. You need something that scares him. Marcus leaned forward. Like what? Dante smirked. Whitmore has a skeleton in his closet. A real one. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Explain. Dante reached into his jacket and slid a manila folder across the table. Let's just say, Whitmore's crimes go way beyond stealing money. Marcus opened the folder, and what he saw made his stomach drop. This wasn't just corruption. This was murder. And if the world found out, Whitmore wouldn't just lose his bank. He'd lose everything. Marcus exhaled, gripping the folder tighter. The game had changed. They had tried to kill him to keep this buried. But now, he had the one thing Whitmore couldn't afford to let see the light of day. Marcus stared at the damning evidence in the folder, his breath steady despite the storm raging inside him. The photographs, the testimonies, the records. Whitmore wasn't just a corrupt banker. He was a murderer. And if these documents were right, he had been covering up a crime so sinister that exposure wouldn't just ruin him. It would destroy him. Across the table, Dante sipped his whiskey, watching Marcus carefully. That's not just leverage, he said. That's a death sentence for him and maybe for you. Marcus exhaled. How long have you had this? Long enough to know that Whitmore has been using his power to keep this under wraps. But you might just have the muscle to make it mean something. Angela, who had been reading over Marcus's shoulder, clenched her fists. This isn't just fraud. This is something the FBI would care about. Dante smirked. If the FBI wasn't already in Whitmore's pocket. Marcus closed the folder. His options were clear. He could go to the press. But Whitmore's reach was deep. The wrong move. And the story would disappear before it even made an impact. He could take it to law enforcement. But if Dante was right, Whitmore's people would shut it down before it ever saw a courtroom. That left one option. Marcus had to become the executioner himself. The next morning, Marcus made a call. The person on the other end answered after 2 rings. You must be desperate if you're calling me. Marcus smirked. I need something done. The voice on the line chuckled. Whitmore, right? Marcus didn't confirm or deny it. Can we meet? Same place as last time. Don't be late. Angela frowned as Marcus hung up. Who was that? Marcus grabbed his keys. An old friend. Stay here. If I don't come back in an hour, you know what to do. Angela grabbed his wrist. Marcus, I'll be fine. The warehouse was dark, cold, and smelled of oil and rust. Marcus stepped inside, spotting the figure leaning against a stack of crates. A tall man, wearing a leather jacket and a knowing smirk. Marcus King, he said, arms crossed. What's a guy like you doing in a place like this? I need insurance, Marcus said, tossing the folder onto a table. The kind that makes people like Whitmore very uncomfortable. The man, known only as Ghost, flipped through the pages. A slow whistle escaped his lips. You weren't kidding. This is the kind of stuff that doesn't just get people fired. This gets them buried. That's why I need protection. I need this leaked, but in a way Whitmore can't stop. Ghost nodded, thinking, I know people. Hackers. Whistleblowers. But once this goes out, there's no undoing it. You ready for that? Marcus met his gaze. I'm counting on it. Back at the penthouse, Angela's phone buzzed. She glanced at the unknown number and hesitated before answering. Hello? Silence. Then a voice, cold and sharp. You have one last chance. Walk away. Angela's breath caught. Who is this? You know exactly who. Angela's grip tightened. If you think threats are going to... This isn't a threat. It's a promise. The call ended. Angela's hands trembled as she turned to the door just as Marcus walked in. She ran to him, grabbing his arm. Marcus, we have a problem. Marcus listened as she replayed the conversation. His jaw clenched. They're getting desperate. Angela shook her head. No, Marcus. They're watching us. As if on cue, the apartment's lights flickered. The security system let out a shrill beep. Marcus's blood ran cold. They weren't just watching. They were here. A sound came from the hallway, a low creak, the kind only a heavy footstep could make. Marcus exchanged a glance with Angela, motioning for her to stay behind him. His heart pounded as he moved toward the door, every muscle coiled like a spring. He reached for the handle. Then the door burst open. A masked figure lunged inside, gun raised. Marcus barely had time to react before the first shot went off. The gunshot tore through the air, deafening in the confined space of the penthouse. Marcus barely had time to react before he tackled Angela to the floor, shielding her as the masked intruder stormed in. The bullet embedded itself into the wall behind them, sending dust and fragments of drywall raining down. Angela let out a sharp gasp, her eyes wide with fear. Marcus. Marcus rolled him behind the couch, his mind racing. Whoever this was, they weren't here to scare him. They were here to eliminate him. The masked figure advanced, their footsteps deliberate, calculated. You should have walked away, a deep voice growled. Marcus gritted his teeth. Not my style. Another shot rang out, narrowly missing his head. He needed to act fast. He grabbed a heavy lamp from the side table and, with all his strength, hurled it toward the intruder. The lamp shattered against the figure's arm, throwing him off balance for a split second. But a split second was all Marcus needed. He lunged forward, grabbing the wrist, holding the gun. They struggled, grappling violently as Angela scrambled to safety. The intruder was strong, but Marcus was fueled by pure adrenaline and fury. The gun fired again, this time into the ceiling. Marcus twisted the attacker's arm, forcing him to drop the weapon. It clattered to the floor, but before Marcus could reach for it, the intruder landed a brutal punch to his ribs, sending him staggering back. Angela didn't hesitate. She grabbed a heavy vase and smashed it against the back of the intruder's head. The man grunted, stumbling forward. Marcus seized his chance. He grabbed the attacker by the collar and slammed him into the coffee table, sending glass shards flying. The intruder groaned, dazed. Angela kicked the gun away, sending it sliding across the floor. Who sent you? She demanded. The man laughed, a low, cruel sound. You already know. Marcus yanked off the mask, revealing a rugged, scarred face. The man's eyes were sharp, filled with both malice and amusement. Whitmore doesn't like loose ends, he sneered, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. And you? You're the loosest end there is. Marcus's grip tightened. You tell Whitmore he made a mistake. The man smirked. He doesn't take messages. Before Marcus could react, the assassin grabbed a shard of glass and slashed toward his face. Marcus jerked back just in time, the blade narrowly missing his eye. With a burst of desperation, Marcus drove his fist into the man's jaw, knocking him out cold. Angela was already on her phone. We need to go. Now. Marcus nodded, breathing heavily. We're not safe here anymore. They packed only the essentials, moving quickly. Within minutes, they were out of the penthouse, slipping into Marcus's car and speeding away. Angela's hands were shaking as she gripped the dashboard. They found us, Marcus. That means they're watching everything. Marcus clenched the steering wheel. We have to hit them first. Angela glanced at him. What do you mean? Marcus's jaw was set in stone. We take the fight to them. No more running. They drove to a secure location, a safe house Marcus had set up years ago, hidden under an alias. Inside, Angela collapsed onto the couch, rubbing her temples. This is getting out of control, she muttered. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed Ghost. It's time. Ghost picked up after one ring. That bad, huh? They sent a hitman. A low whistle. All right, King. Your move. Marcus exhaled. Leak everything. There was a pause. You sure? Once it's out, there's no stopping it. Marcus's voice was steel. Do it. Ghost chuckled. Consider it done. Marcus hung up. He turned to Angela, who was watching him carefully. Once this drops, Whitmore's going to lose his mind. Angela nodded. Then we need to be ready. Within hours, the internet exploded. News outlets picked up the story. Social media was flooded with posts exposing Whitmore's crimes. Hashtags calling for his arrest trended worldwide. And then came the panic. Marcus's phone lit up with messages, some from unknown numbers, others from terrified people who had worked with Whitmore. Please, I have a family. Don't include me in this. You don't know what you've done. You've just signed your own death warrant. Angela watched the chaos unfold on TV, her fingers gripping the edge of her seat. It's working, she whispered. Marcus didn't respond. He was staring at his phone. A single message stood out. A direct text from an unknown number. Checkmate? You really think this is over? You have no idea what you started. Marcus's blood ran cold. Angela noticed his expression. What is it? He handed her the phone. She read the message, her face paling. Marcus. Then another text came through. Turn on the news. Marcus grabbed the remote and switched channels. The image on the screen sent a chill through his soul. A live broadcast outside Whitmore's estate. Flashing red and blue lights. A stretcher being rolled out. A body bag. The anchor's voice was grave. We have breaking news. Banking mogul Charles Whitmore has been found dead in his home. Details are still emerging, but early reports suggest an apparent suicide. Marcus felt the room tilt. No, Angela whispered. No way. Marcus's grip on the remote tightened. Whitmore was dead, but Marcus knew better. This wasn't a suicide. Someone else had just made their move, and Marcus was next. What really happened to Whitmore? Who was pulling the strings now? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 3. Things are about to take a shocking turn.